Hi friends, my name is Jake. Welcome to Canadian Cutting Edge, and today we're going to take a look at this knife. This is the Sencut Actium. This is actually the second knife that they produced, and it took me a while to get down to reviewing it. I reviewed the episode as my first video, and from the distance, they look like they're very much the same knife, and there certainly are similarities. And I'm going to do a little bit of comparison between the two in this video. I rarely do comparisons, but they're the same brand, and I guess I'm going to do a comparison because I feel like it. This week, I'm celebrating 15,000 subscribers. That means on one of the videos that I review this week, I'm going to randomly choose one of the comments in one of the videos that I post this week, and that winner will win a knife, and it will be this knife. This is the Real Steel Sacra. I think it's pronounced Sacra. It's an axis lock knife, and it's pretty nice. It's got a 3.2-inch blade, so if you live in a jurisdiction where you can't have a knife that long, we'll find something else for you, a different knife. You're still going to win something, and you can live just about anywhere in the world as long as I'm allowed to mail stuff to your country, which is just about every country. You can win. So there you go. This knife, do I like it? Well, let's go over to the tabletop and take a good close look at it. Keep watching. Today, let's start with the price on this thing. The price on this knife in the United States, $43 at White Mountain Knives, and you can save 10% off of that with coupon code CCE, makes it $38.70, but that's not for every color. Some of them at White Mountain Knives with the G10 are $46.75. Take off 10%, that makes it $42.08, pretty good. And for the Bubinga version, they've got a different name for the wood, but it is Bubinga. A lot of wood species have multiple names, but in North America, we tend to call it Bubinga. That's $50.50. That equals $45.45 after your discount. That sounds like a pretty good deal, and I really think it is. In Canada, Blades Canada's got these knives, and they've got 3 different prices for the G10 versions. They don't have the wood version. The lowest one's the all black for $61.99. This one here is $62.99, and some of the others are $69.99. The American one, this purple one, being $38.70, that's about $52 Canadian. So it's about $9 more Canadian to buy this knife in Canada. So you decide if that's worth it or not. This knife, if it got inspected at the Canadian border, would probably fail. The Thumbstud might, depending on which CBSA agent you get, Thumbstud knives, those are okay. And some agents will notice that it's also got a flipper, and then they're going to say it's not any good. It all depends on which CBSA agent you get, if your knife is going to be considered inadmissible or not. Canadian knife laws are a little bit fuzzy, and enforcement is extremely fuzzy. So if you don't want any of that risk, Blades Canada is the place to go. I do not have a discount code for Blades Canada. If you're in other countries, find out what it's like, the price is in your country. I can't list all the countries. Now let's move on to the blade shape. Now I said that I'll do a little bit of comparison. This is the episode, and I reviewed this, the very first Sencut that I reviewed. I like the steel. The steel here is 9CR18 MOV. This is D2. I wish this was 9CR18 as well. We've got a clip point. There's a little bit of a negative radius in here. This is, a straight clip here. They've got a swedge here, but it goes right to the tip. This swedge goes part of the way. And you've got sort of a harpoon style thumb riser here. This is curved, and this is, a little bit curved up as well. Pretty good. We've got a flat grind here. We've got a hollow grind here. I'm a big fan of hollow grinds. And this is very thin behind the edge as well. This slices and cuts and pierces extremely well. The sharpening from the factory, it's passable. It's okay. But it's a little bit thin at that tip, so be careful with that tip. But a beautiful thin grind. You can get this in a gray wash as well, or you can get it with a satin finish. I wish it came with a stone wash finish. But since it's D2 steel, that's a carbon steel, I like this black wash on D2, although I'd prefer to have a good stainless steel. Another big difference here is we've got a forward choil on here instead of just a sharpener's choil. Now, I wish that we could have had a combination of these two. I think there's a better way for both of these that would make me even happier. Keep the hollow grind, but do a couple things differently. The first thing is, see how the steel, stands off of the handle there by about 1/8 of an inch? I would like this cutaway to come back to the handle. That would do two things. It would give room for a bigger finger, because right now this space here is just barely big enough as a forward choil. You do risk when you're going to grab it to come across the edge, the sharp edge, and then cut the side of your finger. I wish there was a bit more room in there. Most knives that have forward choils tend to be on the little small side here for me, and just bringing it back that 1/8 of an inch would make it plenty big enough without having to change anything. So I'm not too fond of this forward choil. There's a second reason I'm not fond of this forward choil, and that's this jimping, this harpoon tip. If you grab the forward choil, you've got to keep your thumb back here. You can't put your thumb up here comfortably. You can if you're not going to cut through anything, but if you're cutting through something hard, we've got that swedge. It's more narrow. It gets hot on the thumb pretty quick doing that. So the spine and the forward choil aren't really compatible with one another. Whereas on this knife, it comes out further, it's even more of a point, so that's not good either. But, this one's got more jimping further out from the pivot, and I wish this one did as well, and the clip point started back here. That way, your thumb could be comfortable right here, so when you're cutting through stuff with that edge right there, it's very comfortable. So be aware that your thumb has to stay back here and not necessarily over what you're cutting unless you're cutting right close to your finger. So there's pros and there's cons. This as a hollow grind would be better than this, in my opinion. But I really do like the Thumbstud. The other things about the blade here, the badging is nice and small. It says D2 right there. And on this side, Sencut is on the flat, which I much prefer. Like on this guy, Sencut's on the bevel. Does the blade pass? Yeah, it gets a passing score, I guess, but not a glowing score. Like, those couple things do add up. But this edge and this hollow grind, I really, really like. The Thumbstud, you've got texture all along the side of it. It's easy to get behind it even on the left side, which is very nice. A lot of knives don't give you enough room to get behind it if you're left-handed. So this one's well ambidextrous because you can get behind that Thumbstud no problem. And of course in the right hand as well, it's easy to get behind it. And getting to the lock release is easy enough even if you're left-handed. So, it's easy to deploy this blade and use it. So I like that. The flipper, it's got jimping all the way up the front and across the top of it, and it works quite well. It's easy to get at, pushing from the side or doing the light switch method. Both work very well, so I'm happy with that. So the blade gets a pass. The pivot area, we've got T8 screws right here, and I'll take it apart. I'm sure that these are free spinning. Most Sencuts, maybe every Sencut I've done, has free spinning pivot pins. So sometimes you need 2 screwdrivers possibly, although I've never needed that on Sencut. Just one, taking it off on one side seems to work. We've got ball bearings in there, and I'll take it apart to show you that. They're fairly smooth. The detent's good. So it's a well dialed in detent. Lock up, no blade play, side to side, up and down. There's your stop pin, and we've got phosphor bronze cages with, I think, ceramic ball bearings in there. Lock-up point, very much where I like it to be on a brand new knife, so that's quite good. A lot of access here to that lock bar that sticks up nicely. This pivot area, it's got really good marks in my books. Open pillar construction back here, and the liners are nicely rounded. There's no crisp edges or anything. And then we've got a lanyard hole back here. I'd much prefer if they did it like they did on the episode and put a post back here. But as you can see, this knife is a little bit deeper this way than the episode is. Just fills the hand nicely. I like having it a little bit bigger, so I like this handle better than the episode handle. T8 screws everywhere, right and left pocket clip. There's a chamfer across the back here, and a couple little decorative lines milled in this flat slab G10, and then the edges are rounded. Very comfortable in hand. I'm quite happy with that. Nice hourglass shaped pins back here. There is skeletonizing in there. I'll show you that in a little while. The pocket clip, we've got your standard Sencut pocket clip. It comes pretty close to the end, not quite. That's where you have some T6 screws, but these T6 screws that Sencut uses tend to have a little bit of extra depth to them. Let me see if there's any play in these. Tiny bit of play, but as you can see, there's, well, maybe you can't see it, there's a bit of depth. The teeth of the screwdriver actually sink in a little bit. There's less chance of stripping out these T6 screws than many T6 screws, especially on budget knives. And these T8s, let's double check these. Yeah, as usual, they're nice and deep. There's just a tiniest bit of play in these, not much at all. And these are even more snug. You can get a really good bite on these. Very low chances of slipping out with those. Let's, I was talking about the pocket clip. I didn't finish that, did I? Let's finish the pocket clip. Going into a pocket, we've got a little bit of a flat spot on the top. It goes in, climbs on, holds on quite tightly. You got a little bit of that knife sticking out, not much at all. And then with these holes in the clip, it's very easy to get a grip on it to pull it back out. So the pocket clip gets a real pass. There's actually a little more room this way than there needs to be. It could be a bit of a flatter pocket clip, but in my hand, it's not really hot. A little bit here with extended use, if I'm really grabbing tight. Like I said, if it was in just a little bit, it would be a little more comfortable, but it's not bad. I'm quite happy with the pocket clip. The comfort in using this knife is quite good. The balance point is right there, which is not bad. I wish it was a little closer to the pivot pin, but I say that almost all the time on my reviews. And like I said, right and left, there's no cutout here, so it's just nice flush G10. It doesn't look bad that there's a possibility of a left-hand side pocket clip. Now it's time to take the thing apart and show you how it's constructed. Okay, it's apart, and here's a look at the 3 different screws. Even the flush screw, it's pretty a long thread in there. These T8 screws are really nice. They're not button screws. They're some of the best T8 screws I've seen on knives, and these are nice budget knives. And here's the pivot screw. Doesn't seem to be any Loctite on the pivot screw. There's a little bit on the T6 right here. You can see that blue right there. But these other ones don't look like they've got anything on them. And there's a little skeletonizing even on this liner. Certainly on this liner there's a lot of skeletonizing. And there's the ceramic ball bearings in the phosphor bronze cages. They're tiny. I wish that it had bigger ball bearings, but it's okay. Stop pin right in there. Yep, it's pretty standard construction. Just before I do all the sizes and dimensions, I forgot to show the blade alignment. It's a little bit off to the side, still very far from rubbing, acceptable. The weight on this thing, 108 grams, 3.81 ounces. That's very acceptable. The sharpness from the factory, measured 3 times. The average is 145 best. That's very much the average from the knives that I've reviewed in the last several years. The cutting edge length, 80.5 millimeters, 3.17 inches. Blade length, tip to the closest spot on the handle, 88 millimeters, 3.46 inches. The thickness of the blade stock, 2.93 millimeters, 0.115 of an inch, so just a bit under 1/8 of an inch. Blade depth this way, 29.9 millimeters, 1.18 inches. The thickness behind the grind, along the length again measured in 3 places, 0.33 millimeters, 13 thousandths of an inch. I like it. I like it a lot. 13 thousandths is enough, especially with D2, to be strong. The grind angles. This side's got an average of 24.4 degrees. This side's got an average of 22.2 degrees, and still it was quite slicey. This side started off at 22.5 degrees here, About in the middle, it was 19.8 degrees, and near the tip, it was 24.3 degrees. That's 4.5 degrees of change, and most of that is, just in this section here. So they didn't keep a good consistent angle, but they did end up getting the edge sharp. This side started at 20.5 degrees, ended at 28.3 degrees. That's 7.8 degrees of change along the length. Unfortunately, that's pretty standard for the industry. Doesn't that suck? That just sucks. On to the handle. The handle length, 115.9 millimeters, 4.56 inches. The grip area, not counting this little bit of a change there, because that's not very grippy, a little over 9 centimeters, a little over 3.5 inches. The thickness of the handle on the G10, 12 millimeters even. That's 0.472 of an inch. The handle depth, so within the grip area, what's the widest point? It's actually right about here, 25.9 millimeters, 1.02 inches. When the knife is closed, where's the widest point? Well, it's back here, 36.9 millimeters, 1.45 inches. And the total length of this knife, 204 millimeters, 8.03 inches. So not bad proportions, right at 3.5 and, right at 4.5. Not bad. Is it great? No, but it's a good knife. I like that it's fully ambidextrous. I'm a big fan of thumb studs. If you don't like thumb studs, this thumb stud doesn't get in the way of your cutting, so that's okay. And you can use the flipper, so that's just fine. You can take the thumb studs off if you wanted to. There'd be a little hole, but remember, after the discount, this is $38.70 American. It's not a bad deal at all. It's nice. The handle's got the rounded parts. The pocket clip's okay. It's right and left friendly. It's comfortable. There's nothing sharp on it except for where it should be sharp. If you don't mind D2, this is good. I really wish they would have put this thing out with, a stainless steel. I would, sell this thing in a heartbeat and buy the one with the stainless steel. I just prefer stainless steel on my pocket knives. Some little changes. If I had the satin version, I would grind this back here a little bit. It'll make the flipper a little bit smaller, but just at the back of the flipper, it won't change the front of the flipper. It won't change how it works. And that would give me more room and more comfort. Because right now, all your pressure is just on that piece of steel. If you have to squeeze, doing some hard work, and if it was cut back a little bit, you could rest on the G10. It'd give a wider section of pressure on your finger and more comfort. I'd like that better, but I'm a big fan of this hollow grind. Extend the spine a little bit, that'd be nice. But this handle shape, really comfortable. This bend back here, it just sort of fits in the palm of the hand. It's a good size. It's lightweight. The action's nice. Sure, I'd like bigger ball bearings, but it's nice. I'm happy with this knife. If you don't mind D2, and it's pretty much, if you like these things, the shortcomings can be forgiven, at least in my opinion. Huge shout out to the supporters of my channel. Thank you very much. I appreciate your help every month. One of them wins a knife every single month. And my supporters also get first dibs on every knife sale. So supporting my channel is pretty cheap. As little as $2 US per month gets you those things. And of course, you can also chat with me anytime you want on the Patreon page if you want to. You can also be a YouTube member supporter. Just click the join button that's down below. So either way, it's very economical and your help is very much appreciated. So thanks for watching. Thanks for liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. Let me know what you think of this knife. Do you have one? It's been around for a little over a year now, so maybe you do. Let me know what you think of it. And remember, friends, always cut towards your chum, not your thumb.